What if your fourth year psychology project could change the course of your entire career? That's exactly what happened to JCU PhD candidate Madison Green, and she's here to share her surprising journey from aspiring clinician to misinformation researcher. Professionally Psyched is the podcast that brings you cutting-edge psychology research and real-world insights from our Psych community of clinicians, researchers, and educators alike. We're here to explore how psychology shapes our everyday lives and impacts the world around us. Hi everyone, and welcome to Professionally Psyched. I'm Jessica Muller, PhD candidate in Public Health at James Cook University, and before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record, and for me today that's the Bindal and Wulgurukaba peoples. And I pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures from wherever you may be tuning in from across the country. We are very excited for today's episode as we join fourth year JCU Psychology student Travis Stout as he sits down with Psychology PhD candidate Madison Green to explore the rewarding aspects of PhD research, from critical thinking to global connections, and the challenges of addressing deeply entrenched, misinformed views. Maddie also shares with us her career evolution thus far, proving that exciting and unexpected opportunities can arise when you follow your passions. So grab your headphones and get ready to get professionally psyched about the power of research to shape minds and potentially change the world. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Travis Stout and I am currently doing my Bachelor of Psychological Science Honours at JCU.
And I am Madison Green. I'm a PhD candidate here at JCU in the Psych department, and I actually did my undergrad through JCU.
Amazing. I'm going to ask Madison a few questions today to get a little bit of insight into how it is studying a PhD. And maybe she will have a few tips as well. So did you want to start by telling us a bit about your area of research and the study you're currently working on?
So my area of research is all about misinformation. So why do people fall for it and how we can counter it? So I've been specifically looking at misinformation and attitudes towards a contentious science topic. And over my PhD and even in my fourth year research, I've evaluated the effectiveness of an intervention which is based on a theory called inoculation theory, which basically describes a messaging technique which teaches individuals to engage in more critical thinking to help them be able to better identify misinformation in the information they come across.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And what led you into this specific topic? Like, was it a search of the literature? Was it something that you were maybe interested in prior to it?
So how I sort of fell into it is, so my PhD research really developed from my fourth year project. So, at the beginning of fourth year, all the supervisors put out a whole bunch of topics and we sort of identified the topics and the advisors that we want to work with. And my advisor for my fourth year, my PhD, was Connor McShane.
Yeah.
And Connor proposed this project which was about attitudes about extreme weather events and misinformation in that space. And so in my fourth year project, we evaluated the effectiveness of this inoculation framework at having people better identify misinformation about extreme weather events. And interestingly, it didn't really work in the way that we would expect. In that the intervention made people worse at identifying misinformation or more skeptical rather. So people rated a factual article as less reliable than the misinformation counterpart. It was really, really interesting to us. So we wanted to further develop that idea. In my PhD.
Prior to, entering into a PhD and studying in your undergrad, what was your experience, I guess, in that first half? And did you always know sort of wanted to end up in a PhD?
That's a really great question. No, I think I did the classic when I started my psychology degree. I thought, right, I'm going to be a clinician. Lots of people get into psychology because they have this desire to help people and probably work in those one-on-one situations. But throughout my degree, I just grew this budding interest in wanting to take the step back and be on the other side of research to help inform interventions. And that really came to fruition, like this desire to be on this research side during my 4th year project. I loved the experience of undertaking my 4th year study.
Was there a point where you come into psych and you have this preconceived notion that you want to do clinical psych?
Yeah.
Was it at 4th year honours when you got to do the research that you sort of changed your idea?
Absolutely.
Was there a key point where you realised, or it was just like a slow sort of gradual
It was
realisation?
as I was doing my literature review for my 4th year project, and when we then started recruiting for my study, and I just got such a rush out of seeing the results come in and analysing the data and making recommendations from that. And it was at that point I started having the conversations with Connor about let's keep developing this further. It's so interesting to me.
So it's a good time to talk about career in PhD. A lot of people might be starting psychology and not necessarily knowing or having the same preconceived idea.
Absolutely.
If you had known earlier, do you think you would have found benefits the way you worked in your undergrad?
Probably, because I think it's been really valuable for me to know earlier about what being a PhD student is like and the career opportunities that come from it. As in, you learn a great amount of critical thinking skills, how to communicate to all different audiences, engaging with so many different people from different disciplines is really rewarding, and it's interesting to continue your learning. I really encourage students to think of other career paths.
Because I guess for me, and coming in probably a bit after you, it's still sort of the same idea that everyone wants to do clinical, and then it's learning what the pathways are, because it is a bit complicated when you go and look at the framework of the pathways. And so I think people can get a bit confused maybe of what they want to do. But then, obviously educating people on the PhD pathway is a really good thing.
It's definitely an option. And also it's so rewarding being on the other side, and research is so important to how society functions, but even in terms of an individual level, like as clinicians, you need to have an evidence base for how you interact and treat patients, right? And how we know what to do in those situations comes from research. You're still having such a great impact in society by being on the other side of the research.
Can still help so many people just by doing the research.
Absolutely.
So the idea that because you're not sitting in front of them and directly impacting them, it's not to say that doing a PhD, you have such a wider effect.
I personally feel like I'm having perhaps an even greater impact than I would as a clinician. My reach in that situation is,
Very small.
8 people a day, right? Whereas being a researcher, it's cool to think about how many people are reading your studies.
So coming back to your project and after that, what you think you might end up doing, is this an area you want to stay in, or are you potentially looking at other areas to move to?
So I absolutely want to keep doing research in the misinformation space. I think misinformation is such a prevalent issue in society, and we need to continue developing and finding ways to address the spread of misinformation, and also keeping in mind that misinformation is in all different facets. So we see it on social media, but also
the whole AI stuff going in.
AI, absolutely. That's a huge issue and something which calls for so much more research, because it's just at a whole other layer to how we're going to address the problem of misinformation. There's still so much work to do in this space.
Oh, that's interesting. I can definitely see the importance of this kind of thing.
Absolutely. For sure. My own study findings showed that the intervention that I ran based on inoculation theory, it didn't work in terms of shifting people's misinformed attitudes about the contentious science topic. It works as a preventative tool, so it gives people the ability to spot misinformation before they're exposed to it.
But I mean, once they're exposed, there's not much really out there.
No. So we still need to keep investigating ways to capture those people who have these entrenched misinformed views, because that's the dangerous one.
Have you spotted anything that may help with that?
Not really, to be honest. It's still It's all context specific as well. So it depends on the topic. So there's been some interventions, like inoculation interventions, which have worked in terms of shifting attitudes about climate change, like misinformed attitudes about climate change. But in my application, which was genetically modified organisms, which people are really fearful of and have very strong negative views on, the interventions didn't work in that application because the attitudes and fears are too strong. So we still need to work to figure out the intervention which will work. But also the next big area of development is looking at real-world applications, real-world studies, because there's so many lab and experiment studies, right? Yeah. Evaluating how to address this issue of misinformation.
Just talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But whether the skills people learn in these interventions, whether they're actually applying in the real world, that's still a bit of an unknown in the next direction for the research.
No, I think that's great. I think it's really important.
Yeah,
I just get worried myself, like the whole AI and social media thing. Like I have my own opinions on that.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a really good way to actually identify what's going on and make like a real change. Lastly, anyone that's considering doing a PhD, maybe just about to go into a PhD, do you have any tips that maybe you can pass on?
Doing a PhD has been the most rewarding thing that I've done in my life. I have learned so many skills. I've met so many cool people, gotten to do so many cool things. I've had the opportunity to go overseas twice and present my research findings. I couldn't have gotten through it though without an incredible support network around me. That's like my friends and family, but also fostering really strong connections with the other PhD students in your lab to help get you through is so important, because being a PhD student is a really unique experience, very different to everything else that you do. And the only people who truly understand it and what you're going through at the time are your peers. So fostering really strong relationships is key. And then just hard work, but rewarding too. Like I don't want to scare anyone.
No, I agree with that whole the support network
so
thing.
important.
Like you should get onto that as early as possible. PhD, is it like an everyday sort of thing? You add it constantly. Imagine the workload to be just through the roof.
Yes, because also even if I have days when I'm not actively, sitting down and writing my thesis, I'm constantly thinking about my research and what my findings mean, what I can do next. And you have these aha moments always as you're driving your car or like in the shower, and you get these random brain thoughts. So I feel like you never actually truly switch off from it. But I think that just shows your passion and interest in it.
Definitely does. Do you think choosing a project that you're obviously interested in helps with that? Because it sounds like you're obviously passionate about this topic. Is it important?
So important. Can you imagine spending 3, 4, 5 years in some instances working on a project and giving all of your energy to, and you don't actually care about the topic? It wouldn't work. You need to be passionate about it to keep you going. I think that's definitely important. And I even give that advice when I'm teaching students. If you need to choose an essay topic or a literature review topic, make sure it's on something that you are interested in, because you're going to be more likely to then, engage in the research writing process. And I know it's not always possible, like when you're in classes.
You have your ups and downs as
Absolutely. Yeah, and like same with a PhD as with everything. Yeah. That's life. But passion and interest in the topic, key things.
Well, no, thank you. That was very interesting, and thanks for sharing your tips and your thoughts.
My absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Professionally Psyched. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the ongoing support of our Psych community. If you'd like to show your support, or if you want us to cover anything on the pod, reach out via our emails, and don't forget you can listen to full episodes on Spotify.